Atrium, General, and Pearl buildings. The Midway building is located at 250 J Street and houses a few classrooms. A little further up the road is the Voorhees building at 186 J Street, and behind the Voorhees building is the Environmental building. Next, let's get your ID so you can take advantage of all the services in the college. The office is located on the atrium ground level. Remember, you will need a copy of your current schedule and another form of identification to get your CityTech ID. Now that you have your ID, you can check out books from the library and have access to our computer labs. If you have not done so already, you should claim your CUNY First account. The account is important for access to important student resources. You do not need to be on campus to do so, and we can always help you in the Welcome Center in Atrium 114. Or you can get assistance by calling the help desk at 718-260-4900. If you would like to connect your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone to the CityTech Wi-Fi, you can stop by the Welcome Center for assistance. Let's review some important information about your class schedule. The classrooms will be listed next to the course title. Each classroom will have a letter in the front of the room number. The letter represents the first letter of the names of each of the buildings. For example, N422 would indicate that your classroom was in the NAM building and on the 4th floor. Another example is P201, which means your class is in the Pearl building and on the 2nd floor. Some important resources to keep in mind are the Counseling Center in NAM 108, the library in the Atrium 4th floor, the computer lab in the Atrium ground floor, the computer lab in the 6th floor of the G building, across the road is the Voice Building at
I
186
do.
State Street. And behind the
And I have a
Voice
little
Building
something else
is the
off
Environmental
camera.
Building. Next, let's get your ID so you can take advantage of
Peter, how is the movement in Astoria? A lot of people in the streets?
No, not at all. It's actually shocking how quiet it's been. Although this weekend was different because of the weather. So now that the weather is getting warmer, I think we'll have more people in the streets. But for the past few weeks, it's been incredibly quiet. I can't ever remember it being so quiet.
Yeah, there is temptation when the weather is nice to go out, right?
Yes, and so we'll see, what this does to infection rates.
Yeah.
Who's taking the attendance now?
Hi, how are you?
Kind of, how are you?
There is a channel for attendance that you have to log in.
Yeah, when you log in, you're there.
There's attendance?
Yeah, there is a channel for attendance and voting.
Oh, really? The attendance too? I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
That
Okay.
did it.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and redo this for everyone that may not have been at the last meeting. This is proposal I'm going to go ahead and redo this for everyone. New degree program, BS in healthcare policy and management. Actually, Randy, can you zoom in, or is that?
I'm going to go ahead and redo this for everyone.
New degree program, I think it's BS in healthcare policy. So this is a new degree BS degree program for students interested in career health in health who have an AS degree but no previous healthcare experience. So this is a new degree serve as an upper level alternative to the college's current. The proposal has a slight change since the initial, or since the proposal that is on Open Lab, in that the proposers who are here, I hope, have changed this to a 0 to 4 rather than a 2+2 configuration. So the documents for that are in changed this to posts. They're also on Open Lab, and so you can see them in both locations and in MS Teams. So in a listing here of the strengths of the program from the subcommittee report, this program provides a clear path in healthcare for students who have earned an AS degree but no previous healthcare experience. Students without relevant associate's degrees will be considered for admission with appropriate course evaluation, academic advisement. The weaknesses listed have been revised to be not pertinent anymore because the proposers have modified this proposal from a 2+2 to a 0 to 4. And the actual wording is just being checked throughout the entire proposal. The summary of it, the 5 pages at the beginning of this proposal, has been posted in Teams for. It was there, a couple weeks ago, so everybody could look. And so what I want to do is, we went through this before, but we were right at the point of opening up this for discussion. So I'd like to open this up for discussion, and I think we can use the format that people will announce in the meeting chat, which you get to by with mousing over on the screen, and it's called conversation, show conversation. The chat comes up on the right-hand side, and you can just announce that you would like to ask a question. Let's see, so I don't see, we're back to normal, okay. And is the proposer here?
Yes.
I hope.
Yes.
Okay, great. I didn't check that before we got started. So are there any questions or comments or concerns about this proposal, or any clarifications that would be requested? Yes, and as mentioned in the chat, Nora, you mentioned you can view the files more carefully under the Teams link. You go to Teams, click the channel that says Proposals, CCCC Proposals, and at the top under Files, it will bring up all of the proposals there. And I tried to label everything with the correct number. Everything says 1905 on this proposal. Since we're in a new environment, I'll give everybody a little bit more time, I think. Maybe another minute. No one has questions?
Philip, I see files, but I'm not seeing this one. Where else should I look?
So you go Teams, you go CCCC Proposals, Files.
Where is CC Proposals? That I do not see.
Oh, okay. So when you click Teams, the team on the left-hand side, you should have the College Council 2019 to 2020 channel.
Yes.
It may have some of the things hidden. You can click a little arrow that expands everything below it. One of the channels underneath that should be CCCC Proposals 04-2820. Maybe I should have
one channel. Maybe I've got, yes.
Yeah, you have to kind of what do you call it? Uncollapse them. So when that shows up, you can select that proposal channel, and hit files at the
Files.
top.
Mhm.
Typical Microsoft, you have to go through a billion things, right? And then that should show all of the proposals. So this shows all the proposals. You can
Yes.
sort.
Yes.
So the new degree program is there. The report, the final report is there. And then there's at the bottom, there's the addendums and the new degree design laid out for everybody about the change from a 2+2 to 0 to 4.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let me go back and see if there's any questions. So hold on, I'm going to check. Are these files, okay, so there's one question, Professor Katz, are these files different from the ones posted on the Open Lab site? No, they're not. No, they're not. So I'm going to open that up now, and if you go to Open Lab site, 1905, the first, the top, the top one is the proposal, the full-on proposal. Then the two addendums are in the links just below that, listed. And then below that is the final report. It says final report version 2. That was the update with the comments changed since there was a change in the format from 2+2 to 0 to 4. And then after that is just the original revision 1. So everything should be there.
Proposals, I got them here.
They have not changed. There was a question, so they have not changed at all since the proposals were approved by the executive committee on April 21st. The only change was what is listed in the addendum. It was only a change from a 2+2 to a 0 to 4. And I can let the proposers, I don't know if you're seeing the question, but the question is from Professor Katz. So they have not changed at all since the proposals were approved by the executive committee on April 21st. I don't know if the proposers want to respond to what was changed in the change from 2+2 to 0 to 4.
So as Philip was saying, the proposal itself has not, the language is still in process of being updated. And in order to get information out for the meeting, the addendum was provided, which is the first few pages of the proposal that do indicate the major changes from the 0 to 4, rather than a +2 program. And also in the attachments that are provided, there is the course, the curriculum for the 0 to 4, which is now very well laid out in that additional piece, addendums, if that answers the question.
Okay, the response, I think that it was 0 to 4 at the last meeting. I don't mean this proposal specifically, I mean all of them in the agenda today. Oh, I can't see, oh wait, see more. But we can address other changes later. Yeah, this is the only proposal that has a change in the proposal. So that's and that's the reason why. But that was active at this last meeting too as well. But since it's a continuation, nothing's changed since the last meeting. So okay. Oh, okay. So okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments or concerns or?
Yes. Procedural history, brief description.
So I guess we could go ahead and vote, and if somebody comes up with something while they're reading the proposal, we can always jump back to it, I suppose, since we're in this kind of strange virtual environment, or?
It's not parliamentary procedure, no.
Oh, okay, sorry, my fault. Oh, there's another question. I guess I should just read them out. Hold on one second. Okay, the students in this new program will not be eligible for the ASAP program, right? That's a question from Benito Mendoza Garcia.
I can answer that. This is David Smith. I can answer that if you would like.
Sure.
So yeah, ASAPs are only for 2-year programs. So any 4-year program is not eligible for ASAP. And I believe that students that do want to take advantage of ASAP can register for the Associate of Science in Health Sciences, and then articulate into the healthcare policy and management after they've completed the associate with no loss of academic credit.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
great, thanks.
Oh, great. It's easier when the other person can come. Are there any other questions or comments before we proceed? Okay, so I guess we can go ahead and, if there's no other questions or comments, we can go ahead and close the discussion and move on to the vote. And the vote is in the, should I go through, I guess I could go through that procedure. This is going to be the same for all of them. If you go to click on Teams on the left-hand vertical bar, all of the channels show up. You should have the channel called Attendance and Voting. It's got a little lock on it. And this one is ballot number 3, Curriculum Proposal 1905. You may have to scroll up. You may see the ballot 4, 5, 6. 3 is obviously before that, right after the attendance. And that's where you can go ahead and vote. And everybody can go ahead and vote now. Randy, this is Philip still. Actually, what we could open up is the presentation that I had prepared in there for the rest of these.
Okay.
If you can share, yeah, sorry about sharing this.
I cannot access the voting screen. I'm in general, I'm by department voting or whatever, and I'm not able to see it this time. I saw it the last time.
Okay, so you have College Council 2019-2020 listed there.
Yep.
And beneath it, general. Do you have attendance and voting in that list beneath it?
General, I have welcome to the team. I have everyone's name.
Huh? Oh, no, don't click on general. There's a small arrow to the left of where it says College Council 2019-2020, that channel. And it uncollapses all of the, I guess, sub-channels they're called underneath that. Okay. So there'll be general, attendance and voting.
No, it's under a different thing. Hold on. College Council, attendance and voting.
Yes.
Down there. Hold on, just a oh, I see comments. I'm looking at comments, but I don't. Oh, ballot. Okay. Yep, I got it.
Yes. Anyone else having problems finding the voting for ballot number 3?
I'm pointing out that Liz texted her vote because she does not have the voting and attendance channel on her team. Oh. I looked with her and I did not see it either.
I don't know who you give that to because
I don't know. I don't know what else to do, but I do have a person here that is logged into Teams with her thing, unable to have a voting or attendance. So I'm just pointing it out. There it is.
Okay.
Liz has registered her vote in the chat channel, and I have it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. So I guess we can go ahead and move on. Randy, if you were able to open up the proposal, the report, the presentation. I apologize.
And where was the presentation?
So it's in the same location as the proposal. So if you go to, see, Teams, CCC proposals, files, and it's called, there should be a PDF in there. Oh, where is it? It used to be, this is where I gave the presentation from before. Maybe it's in general? Or no, maybe it's in the meeting from last week. I'm sorry. Maybe it's in the meeting from last week. It is in the meeting from last week. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So meeting 04/28/20. I guess I put it in the main location. Do you see it there, Randy? Presentation. just
presentation.
DC.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So if you share that, we can go on to the next last two proposals. Okay, great. We see your screen, but not the presentation yet. There you go. That one, yes. I didn't change the date, but so we could go to right. Is this the first page of it? Yes. Wait. I'm sorry, can you back up just to make sure? Yes, okay, sorry. All right. So proposal 1912, there are three proposals 1912, resolution to place NYCCT workshops on student transcripts. The proposal was Associate Provost Brown. Actually, this there are two existing workshops and one new workshop. Math Prep and NYC DOB workshops have been offered in the past. It recently was brought to our attention that workshops must be approved by governance before they can appear on a student's transcript, hence the necessitation for this proposal. The Bridge English 1101 is a new workshop being proposed, and it's under the same 1912. So there's there's a B, C, and D. Proposal A was tabled. Rationale is the workshop must be approved by governance. So, whoops. Okay, so B. I guess I'll go through all three of them, and then we'll have questions about them all at once, I suppose. So proposal 12B is a resolution to place math prep workshop on student transcript. This is the mathematics preparatory workshop. It's on, all of these are on Open Lab, and they are also in Teams in the location where the proposals are at. I won't go ahead and read all of these. These are existing proposals, or sorry, existing workshops. This is just a description of what they are. So we can just slowly scroll through this, I suppose. Sorry, the screen jumps a little bit. The rationale is these math workshops have been offered in the past. It was recently brought to our attention the workshops must be approved by governance, hence the necessitation of this proposal. It creates a zero credit workshop, basically under the following reasons. And I think if we can just keep scrolling a little bit, Randy, slowly. Oh, that's it. So that is it on proposal 1912B. Maybe I'll just do all three of them directly. The second proposal, 1912C, is a resolution to place in New York City DOB workshops on the student transcripts. This is the Department of Building Scholars Program offers City Tech workshop 10 consecutive Wednesdays, 5 to 7. It's been offering them since the spring of 2019, and students apply and are accepted, and then they attend workshops with the New York City Department of Buildings. It's been offered, and going down to the rationale, it's been offered in the last 2 years. Many of the students that participate are offered internships, but some sometimes after permanent employment after graduation, but this allows them to have the workshop listed on their transcripts. Well, and then if we can scroll down, Randy, I think to 1912D. This is a resolution to place a Bridge English 1101 workshop on the student transcript. Since this is a new workshop, I'll go ahead and read the full description very quickly. Many incoming students graduate from high school without attending college level proficiency in English. This limits the courses students are able to enroll in when they begin at college. The workshop offers students opportunity to achieve proficiency in English prior to fall matriculation, thus enabling first-year students to start with a full credit-bearing course load in their first semester. By enabling students to achieve proficiency over the summer, the workshops will effectively help students to stay on schedule for 2 or 4-year graduation for associate's and bachelor's degrees, respectively. Workshop will meet for a total of 30 hours, mimicking the co-portion of the English 1101 Co. These students will be placed in without the workshop earning proficiency. The Bridge to English 1101 workshop is similar to previous offered summer immersion interventions, such as English 925R and English 925W, which also had the goal of providing students with the opportunity to earn proficiency prior to the fall semester. This new workshop differs by integrating reading and writing instruction into one intervention, which corresponds to the new placement criteria and proficiency English that combines reading and writing into general English proficiency. And I guess scroll to the next page, as the rationale is similar to the rest, that this would be placed on their transcripts and requires governance approval. And I think this is the last page, Randy, if you can just scroll slightly to make sure. Oh, yeah, well, then there's the discussion. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to discussion, I guess. I believe Associate Provost Brown is here, and anybody. So anybody who wants to speak, please either say you want to speak or just speak, I suppose, as long as it doesn't get crazy.
Philip, could you please show the workshop for 1475? Somehow I missed it. I didn't see it.
There isn't one.
There's no workshop for 1475?
No.
Okay, and why?
Which one are you talking about?
The Math 1475, the 19, I think that is 12B. Under 12B, you listed some workshop for the math courses. And I noticed that there is workshop for 1275, 1575, but not for 1475. I'm wondering why.
Okay, Randy's opening it up, I'm sorry. And then the next, Professor Katz has a comment after that. So we'll just
just speak.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was just looking it up, and yes, it does include 1475 in the version that I'm looking at. So, but
wait,
which
yeah,
is the one
right here.
Which is the one that I sent, to Philip. So basically, let me start off saying a few words about math prep workshops. This was an initiative started by Professor Janet Lumark about 10 years ago. And it is 3-day workshops that are offered right before the beginning of the semester. Review the prerequisite math skills that students need to succeed in their math courses. And in the last 5 years, these courses have been sponsored by the first-year programs. And Janet has now run by Julie Rivera, and they're overseen by trained peer. And Janet's published numerous papers on the outcomes, which show that the students that attend have higher, pass rates and higher grades than students that match students that do not. And last, I think it was in February, we learned, and the reason that they were offered as workshops and they appeared on the transcript is because they are paid for through the immersion first-year programs. And we need to document the number of students that are benefited from these funds, and that helps to assure future funding. We found out that you can't offer a workshop if it hasn't been through governance. So this was an effort to correct that, even though it's been running 10 years, just to have the workshops that have been benefiting so many students go through governance so that we can continue to offer them. It wasn't me that it wasn't me that proposed this. It was Professor Janet Lumark. I'm just the one that emailed them to Philip.
Yeah, sorry about
Okay. And then the second workshop is the New York City Department of Buildings workshop. And as a service to our students and students, they offer these workshops that includes professional development for the students. And it's a big commitment on the part of the students. They attend for 2 hours a week for 10 weeks in the spring semester. And not everyone ends up getting an internship or a job out of it. And Matthew Longo, who is of buildings, put in a request that we make this a workshop so that the students who've made all this effort get credit for it on their transcript. And this one was sponsored by Dean Shields, Sanjeev and myself. And the third one is English, and Lori Aguirre has worked with the department to offer that. And it's the same rationale. We need it to appear on students' transcript. So that is how the first year programs mines how many students have benefited from this funding. And it's a component of future funding, because the more students we benefit, the more funding we get in the future. And that's how we're able to offer these workshops.
So the next question is Professor Neil Katz. Neil, are you on? Are you still here with us? Well, I'll try to get back to that one. There's a question, why do these, oh, sorry. Okay, Professor Katz is logging out, then logging back in. The next question is, whoops. Sorry, I have to scroll up. Why do these transcripts need to be on a student's transcript?
The reason that they need to be on the student's transcript is that the student attendance needs to be recorded in CUNY first in order for the first year programs to be able to determine how many students have benefited from the program. They have been appearing on the students' transcripts for the last 5 years in the case of the math prep workshops. And the Department of Buildings has requested that we do this for the students for their program.
Okay, and then just I think that there's a couple of questions coming in all at once. So the follow-up with this, just very quickly, and then on to Professor Katz, which is back on again, is Professor Bennett asked if they could opt out. Can the students opt out in case it's discouraging for them to be on the transcript? Is this an all or nothing, I suppose, is the question.
You know, if students just want to show up and attend the workshops, yes, they can. Right now it's in CUNY first, and the students self-register them. And if the student ends up not showing up, the registration disappears. So it doesn't appear on the transcript. They only get recognition that they attended it on the transcript. They attend all 3 days.
Professor Katz, are you on right now? I think. Neil, are you here or?
Can I speak? This is Sandy Han.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Hi, I would like to share that the workshops were not proposed by the math department. They did not go through the math department curriculum process, This is a program sponsored by the first year program. I don't know whether this makes a difference. So when Professor Rosani asked questions about the 1475 workshops, so again, the math department is not involved in the decision of how the workshops are conducted or the contents that are offered.
Yes, this is something Professor Lumark developed first for the STEP grant 10 years ago. And initially it was just one course at 1475, and it has since expanded to include the calculus sequence and math 1190. And also, Sandy helped develop the math 1275 co-curriculum that has not been offered, but is available.
I think we're, Professor Katz, you have a question. Oh, I just want to make sure that everybody is able to ask any questions.
Ridiculous.
I want to just to clarify. So my helping with the workshops really stems from my personal time, to help Janet to run the workshop. It does not represent the department, although I'm the chair of the math department. I think that is something that I after I saw the proposal, I thought needs to be made clear. That is, what is the role of the math department in running the workshops, in recruiting the students for the workshops, in training the peer leaders to conduct the workshops. That these questions are not really clear and not answered in the proposal.
Well, they have been running for 10 years. And when Janet and I spoke about it, she could not recall if it had ever been discussed at a math meeting or not 10 years ago when it was first developed. But again, this is a program that the program is offering to help students do better in their math classes. It has a long history of success.
Philip, if I can say a word.
Oh, there's one more question before. Okay. Professor Tara Porvela.
Okay, please. Thank you Philip. Thank you for pronouncing my whole name. Anna is fine.
You're welcome.
I just have a question. Since these are math prep workshops, why wasn't the math department consulted as Sandy was speaking? And since this is since February, there's been a discussion. I think at least they have never been brought to the math department for vetting as such. I know this has a success rate, but the statistician in me has one thing, and that is these are students who are themselves motivated. So motivated students usually do a good job in general, but so I would set that aside. Again, my question is, why wasn't this brought to the math department since these are math prep workshops?
Well, because they've been being offered for 5 to 10 years, and there were never any concerns or objections raised about them before. So, it wasn't anticipated that there would be concerns. Let me, when my house in Sandy flooded, we had to replace the boiler. Then we went to sell the house. They said, oh, you didn't have an inspection. So we went back and we got the inspection, and it took like 5 minutes. It was something that was working, and it's been benefiting students. And never any concerns expressed by anybody in the last 5 to 10 years about them. So it was just thought we could just, take care of this technicality that it hadn't gone through governance.
Can I think Neil has a number of concerns, but can I quickly just ask? And that is, I still am puzzled that you've known this since February, and even just if you're talking about even on a technicality, why not bring it to the math department? That's my question, even on a technicality. And I do agree with Neil's thing. That's why. I'm just going to give, I'm not saying anything more.
Yes, I can comment on that. It was brought to my attention. Associate Provost Brown did send me the proposal, and the proposal indicated that it came from the first year program. I basically did not follow up on forwarding it to the rest of the math department.
So I'm just going to read out, Neil has a comment. The math department was never consulted about what material is appropriate to be included in these workshops. He has a problem getting audio working.
So Philip, can I say, is it my time or?
Give me 1 second, please, Mohammed. It says, Neil says the proposal states that it's from the math department. It was not. That's true. There was a change in, it's not from the math department, as was mentioned, and I had changed the documentation. The documentation was incorrect. It is definitely not from the math department. What we're voting on is not something from the math department. The proposals have been updated. They were changed and updated online, and so they're changed online. It was changed since the meeting was called. It's true. Professor Rosani?
Yes, I just wanted to say that it appears that the math department doesn't have any issue with it. The chair has been consulted, and the chair appears that she does not have any objections to the proposal. So that part, I guess, doesn't need any further discussion. But my question is about if these courses are for the first year, Calculus 1 and 2, especially Calculus 2, how useful is that for the incoming students? Because we are even in engineering fields, the highest level of math that the students sometimes come in is pre-calculus and sometimes calculus 1. So that is the question. And also, who gets to get into these workshops, how many students, and when they have completed the workshops, are the chairs of the departments going to be informed, or in the last 10 years that this has been running, have the chairs been informed that these number of students in your department has already taken the workshops and they have succeeded? Because that would help the faculty who are teaching these students. They know at least the student has some exposure to these math workshops. And I think this is a really great step towards educating and preparing our students before they get into the classes during the fall. I've always asked for such a workshop, and I appreciate that such a workshop has been arranged. Thank you.
Yeah, to answer your question, Professor Rosani, anyone who's taking the prerequisite course is sent an email inviting for them to attend. They're all, particularly recruited from the SEEK program, and also there are flyers that are given to the New Student Center, encouraging freshmen to enroll for it. So any student that is going to be taking a math course is invited to attend the preparatory workshop for the course that they're going to be enrolling in the following semester.
Thank you.
On average, it's hard to say, they've been offered twice a year in January and in August. And typically there's about 25 students in each of the workshops. No, we have not been notifying departments in particular that have attended, but again, it has appeared on the transcript that they attended the workshop.
Thank you.
I want to make sure everybody is able to see the chat on the side. If you scroll over your mouse over the main image right now, it's showing the presentation. You get a bar that appears at the bottom, and it says show conversation, hide conversation, and the chat comes up on the side. There were a couple comments I'm going to read off, and then Dean Vasquez Porras has a comment he would like to make. Professor Katz said that the member of the department. Yes, the members of the department object to this proposal. Members of the math department were not consulted. The curriculum of the workshop needs to be revised. They have students teaching material who do not have sufficient background, and in parentheses, they are not hired by the math department. And furthermore, inclusion of these workshops on the transcript is not appropriate. The transcript is for courses.
May I clarify, these are not teaching sessions, these are workshops where the students work in groups to solve problems, to practice and refresh themselves on prerequisite material. There's no teaching involved. It's peer-led team learning.
Dean Vasquez.
So I just wanted to make a comment that while these workshops are led by students, the peer-led team learning has had quite a lot of success over the years. The idea is that students are in many ways the best to act as models and inspire other students to be fully engaged and practice problems in a very active way. And in fact, I would also comment that within courses in the math department, peer-led team leader students have been used as well. So certainly a lot of precedent.
Question.
Yes. I'm not sure who that was. Okay. Professor Katz said the workshops go over material that is new to the students. For example, the calculus workshop goes over limits, which is not covered in previous courses. I'm sorry. And the New York City DOB workshops are not peer-led. They are set up to introduce students to the scope and breadth of the Department of Buildings. Are there any other?
Yeah, the math, I'm sorry, because there's 3 proposals, yes, the math is peer-led, but that's something different. That's offered by the DOB.
I don't know if there are any other comments or proposals. I'm sorry? Are there any other comments, discussion? There's a comment that I don't think that Neil's question has been adequately addressed.
That's questions, Philip. Zona.
I'm sorry?
his questions. This is Anna Tarapurwala from the Math Department.
There is a proposal, there's a question. These three proposals are very different. Some are controversial and some are not. Can we perhaps vote on the ones which are not controversial? If that was a motion, Mr. Swift seconds that motion.
I don't think we can do that. If it's all one resolution, then we have to vote on the resolution. We can't pull it apart.
They were separated into different proposals.
Okay, so
there's A, B, C, D. There was an A and an A was dropped. So
right, but it's all part of one proposal, though. Right? That was when the curriculum committee approved this, it approved one proposal, not separate proposals, right?
It happened in 2 times because the D was added after. So there was a second set of votes with D on it. They were, and then A was dropped, right? So we've had some changes.
So how many? So yeah, I can't. This was so long ago in curriculum, I can't remember quite myself. So each part of the proposal was voted separately by curriculum. Then is that what you're saying?
I remember exactly how we voted. Yes, we voted for. Well, they were because the fourth one was added, and then the first one was tabled. So
Hi all, this is Kim, and I'm looking at the curriculum committee website. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, and it's listed on the curriculum committee website as 12A, 12B, 12C, and 12D, and they're all separate. So it seems to me that we could vote on them individually.
Yeah, if that's true, then yes, we can vote on them individually.
And they have 3 separate ballots, and they're on the they're on the team's ballot. Three separate ballots. So
okay, then that's fine. Yes.
So let's go ahead and vote on this because they're separated. So everybody is allowed to vote. You can vote differently on each one, and they're all listed in the vote. So I propose we'll go ahead and go ahead to the voting, and you can vote on each individual one separately. So B is the math prep, C is the DOB, D is the English proposal. So you can vote on those separately. So just so that everybody knows, you go teams on the left-hand side. Attendance and voting is the channel, and they're all the proposals. Proposal 5 is curriculum proposal B, 1912B, which is the math prep. Ballot number 6, curriculum proposal 1912C, which is the DOB proposal. And ballot number 7, curriculum proposal 1912D, which is the English proposal. So they're all separated there. All right, and while you're voting, Randy, if you want to bring up proposal 1911, it's the last proposal we have. Thanks, Randy, for all of the screen sharing. Okay, 1911. So I'll go ahead and start everybody's voting now, but I'll talk while we're voting. Proposal 1911 is formalize a transfer credit evaluation appeals process in the catalog. And this is the description. Whereas courses pass for credit at any CUNY college and transfer for credit at any other CUNY college. Whereas the there's a website, and whereas the University Executive Registrar has confirmed the university policy allows colleges at their discretion to accept for transfer credit and course equivalency any course for which the students earned a passing grade from an accredited university, i.e. accredited non-CUNY campuses, and whereas students unnecessarily repeating courses already taken cost them time and money, and whereas both whereas both course content and grading policies vary among colleges that the student is transferring from, and faculty are the best judges of course equivalency and student learning in their discipline, be it resolved that the New York City College of Technology will advise students in the college catalog that they may submit an appeal of a transfer of credit evaluation to the chairperson of the department offering equivalent course. The catalog reference will read, and if you go to the next page, please, Randy. So this is the highlighted is the current, what's in the current catalog. And then the addition is what's not highlighted. So I've tried to make it a little bit more apparent what the change is with this. So I'll let you go ahead and read this. I think everybody hopefully has, but.
I just made some more tomato and better thing, a fresh one.
I'm sorry? I didn't quite hear that. Maybe it wasn't. Could we scroll? I think that the next page is just oh. So this is the rationale for this. We'll give more discretion to chairs in evaluating course equivalencies and making an existing transfer credit evaluation appeal process more transparent to both faculty and students. So we can go ahead and open for discussion. Randy, perhaps we scroll back to the page, not this one, but the course page. That right there. Sorry, the description page. So again, this is the highlighted is what's in the current process in the catalog. What's being proposed is the addition after that. So are there any questions that to be addressed, to be asked? Neil Katz wants to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So the aim of the proposal is to be commended for all the reasons that the proposal states. Unfortunately, the proposal would severely reduce the amount of transfer credit awarded to students because it imposes a artificial one semester deadline, and credits that are not awarded would be lost. In addition, it would be good for the Committee on Students to take a look at this issue, because rather than curriculum, because I don't think it's really a curriculum matter as much as it is a matter for the Committee on Students. The way that general education credits are awarded are haphazard. They're sort of randomly, it seems, attributed to the various pathways buckets without student input, although they can change them later. There are many students that transfer in needing only 9 to 12 credits or even 6 credits of the college option. And those credits, instead of letting the students choose which requirements need to be satisfied, the students are told which credits need to be satisfied, and that requirement for general education was never passed by college council and should stop immediately. In addition, departments are often not consulted when credits for their specific courses are awarded, and this leads to problems. For example, I've done a lot of advisement. Every semester I have to advise a lot of students. So these comments are based on my experience. And we've, the applied math program has a lot of transfer students, and they've often are not given credit until years into their degree for transfer credits. And this would, I just had a student last semester who was awarded 30 credits of transfer credit that he didn't get before. This made a whole year of difference for his when he got his degree. And he was far from the only case. Departments are not consulted about credits. They're just simply evaluated by people who don't necessarily have the qualifications to do so. For example, the difference between calculus and differential equations. One of these students was awarded differential equations when he never took such a course, and then he was allowed to take calculus 1 and calculus 2, which are prerequisites to that course, which should never happen in addition. So this whole procedure needs to be looked at. Also, for general education, those courses don't need to be necessarily reviewed by a department. They should just be awarded based on what area they're in, because it's not important that the college offers this specific course that's equivalent. What's important is that the course would satisfy the gen ed requirement. So I think that either the Committee on Students should look into this and make a proposal that is more broad-ranging and that doesn't endanger the transfer credits of students, and or the College Council could make a committee to do this.
That's a number of questions. Very quickly, I just want to say that there's a motion that was put forth at the beginning of the questions to extend the meeting past 2, and the link is proposed to posted on the chat by Professor Swift to vote for that. In the meantime, Associate Provost Brown, do you want to reply to Professor Katz's questions?
Yes, it's my pleasure. Before this was drafted, it was consulted with the transfer office and the registrar's office. And I want to clear up some things that Professor Katz said. This is not an attempt to try to revamp the entire transfer process. It is just to make the fact that is possible more apparent. There have been examples of students. I'll give. There was a student that took English Composition 1 at Hofstra University and got a C-. Kingsborough, they took English Composition 2, they got a B. When they came to City Tech, they did not get transfer credit for that course at Hofstra, even though it was accepted at Kingsborough, and they had to repeat another English course, even though they'd already completed English Composition 2 to bucket. Later on, it turns out if the chair, who unfortunately who's not on this in this meeting right now, had no person to talk to in the transfer office, the student wouldn't have to be taking that course. So right now, there's no information about the transfer credit, and students and faculty need to know about it. And that's really what it's intended to address, not any of the larger issues. The rationale for the 1 semester deadline is that the transfer credits are ideally evaluated before the student starts taking classes. And it's just like if you go to a restaurant and you order a turkey sandwich and you get a tuna melt, you tell the waitress right then, you don't wait to the end of the meal. Mechanisms for having the transfer credits again after the first semester. This is basically just response to the appeal right after it occurs. And that's why that's one of the reasons it's limited to 1 semester. There are financial aid ramifications if a course is changed. For example, if the student takes English Composition 1 at another place, it doesn't transfer, then they take it here, and then they submit the appeal, and that first transfer gets overruled, they will lose financial aid, negative financial aid implications, because they'll have taken a course that they already had. Subsequent to the first semester, if the student has majors, or there's some other issue, a course substitution used to get contributory credit towards the degree from a transfer course.
Philip, if I can say a word.
Sure.
Yes, in support of what AP Brown just said, I think this proposal aim is to simplify the procedure for the students. And I have a good example in my department. I had a couple of students who took engineering, electrical engineering courses at NYU Poly, and they got a C- grade. And when they transferred it to City Tech, they were not accepted. And as we know, NYU Poly has the same quality, if not better, than City Tech. So it didn't really make sense if somebody from BCC gets a C- is transferred to City Tech, but somebody who gets a C- from NYU Poly cannot get the course transferred. So basically, this will help the students, and it will simplify the procedure they have to go. Of course, that one student finally received the credit because I had to follow it with the provost office, the registrar, and it took over a semester, maybe more, to get it approved. But with this proposal, all those work will, there's no need for all of that work, and the students will be able to transfer the credits.
Great. And I would also note that in highlighting, you'll notice that none of the grades are changing in this proposal. There's nothing changing in the grade part of this. Dean Vasquez Porras asked to speak.
Oh, can I jump in for just a second here? Do we have a count on whether or not we're extending past 2?
We don't have a full count. I've only got 28 participants, so we need at least 60 and to be in favor, or 61 to be in favor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so if you haven't voted yet, go ahead, please. You just have to click on the form inside the chat channel. I'll post it again.
because the question is, should we go to the vote on this since we're getting towards 2 o'clock?
Or we can go ahead and vote, right?
Okay, should we go ahead and vote? It's 1:58.
I'll make.
Yes. So we could
vote rather than making a comment.
So is there a second? So shall we go ahead and vote? There's a second. Go ahead and vote. It's on Teams, same location. The vote is ballot number 4, curriculum proposal 1911, and it's still 1:58. Well, 1:59 now. Still within. We can continue with non-voting issues, though, right? If somebody wants.
Yes, we can. Yeah. So that was the last curriculum proposal.
That was the last proposal. Thank you for all of the curriculum committee people, as well as college council, for putting up with this.
Well,
Back to
Philip,
you,
thank
Randy.
you. Did the provost make it back on, or is she Provost August with us?
Yes, I am.
Did you have anything you'd like to say?
I did have a couple of things. This will be very quick. This is mostly in the good news part of things. I wanted to let everybody know that our Bachelor of Science in Health Communications has been registered by the New York State Education Department, and the program is ready to go. And I want to thank all the proposers from the Humanities Department, Professor Lee, Scannell, Zhu, Professor Delican, Dean Vasquez Ports, and P. Brown. Very exciting. Also, we have 2 faculty Fulbright winners this semester. Can you hear me? Professor Denise Sutton from Business is going to Austria, and Professor Kevin Hum from Architecture is going to Bologna, back to Italy. I also just particularly want to thank the faculty for all of their efforts in this incredibly difficult semester to save this semester for our students. I know faculty have issues of their own, and for some of them this was very difficult, but it has been so important. I particularly want to thank the school deans and the department chairs who have been extraordinary. So thank you, everybody. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is President Hotzler?
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, hello.
We hear you.
You hear me? Good. Okay, very good. Bonnie gave you all the good news. I guess she left the bad news for me. But actually, we'll start off with what I would classify as basically some important information. And first, again, let me add my words of thanks to those of the provosts. Everyone here has really pulled together. Randall, you take the lead with the council, and Professor Anzalone and Professor Swift. I really appreciate all the work you've done to continue the business of the college in a governance sense. It's very important. And we've been doing the same thing on the P&B side, making sure that reappointments go forward. Actions we're about to start with the committee of the considerations for promotion. So the important work of the college goes forward. A lot of uncertainty that we have to deal with. We are, for example, at the moment, we understand we will be in an online mode for the summer offerings, and that's been established. The fall is not yet done. However, I think we should prepare in a way that allows us to be flexible, but it's leaning in a direction that we probably will be largely online and not in person come September. You see the way the dynamics, unfortunately, of the virus are proceeding, and the question about in-person gatherings is still very much a problem and a concern. Our facility, as all of you understand, would not necessarily accommodate the protocols that are currently being discussed in terms of spacing and so on. And if you just can imagine for a second, how can we handle 5,000 to 6,000 people all showing up at the same time for classes on a Monday or Tuesday morning? So the dynamics of this sort of push us in the direction that a large likelihood that we will be doing hybrids or essentially online instruction through the fall semester. And again, excuse me, this is something that ultimately will be decided by the governor in some sense, and certainly the trustees. But as a practical consideration, we should just be thinking in those terms. So that's a sort of something that we're working towards. In the meantime, we're establishing, I'll use the term task force. I'm not sure, you know, it has a certain, how should I say, military aspect to those terms, but we're putting a group together that's going to be looking at the facility and making sure that we can follow, and when we do reopen, that we do it in a way that follows protocol and which areas would have to be restricted, modified, etc. That's a process that's just beginning. Other group we're pulling together is a group that will look more closely at student orientation in the fall. This is not a typical fall semester. We will have freshmen arriving from high school where their senior year was not necessarily a very instructive year for them. And they're coming into an environment that will largely be online. And it's important for us to spend time preparing them for that. So the the provost and VP Hodge and others are getting together to see how we can put together a more formidable orientation program that will make sure they get off on the right foot and have the support they need. It's too early in the registration process. Our freshman numbers look pretty strong. And I think it's largely a consequence of the fact that the students do not necessarily have a lot of options coming up in September. And so continuing or going to college is, I think, very much under consideration. On the other end of the spectrum, returning students are down. And that is something that the entire university is experiencing. Some of that may have to do with financial situations. Some of it may have to do with other family situations. We will have to see how that plays out. I think it's important to just fill everybody in as best I can at the moment with regard to the financial situation. You recall there's an enacted state budget that basically increased the amount of funding that the university receives. Some of that increase was to cover fringe benefits, and some of it was a result of a proposed tuition increase. So in essence, just to throw a number out there, it was $86 million increase over the previous year in terms of the enacted budget. 50 million of that was to cover the increase in medical costs, fringe benefits, and other contractual provisions. 36 million was based on a $200 a year tuition increase. That increase is currently being debated by the trustees, and it's not clear yet whether, in fact, the university will proceed with that tuition increase given the larger dynamic. I don't expect that to be resolved until probably sometime in June or the June board meeting. But understanding that the state recognized the potential 36 million from the tuition increase and put it in our budget, that should that not be approved, it would create a bit of a downside to the budget. More importantly, in the budget scenario this year, you may recall reading that the state actually passed a budget, despite everything that's going on, that increased by almost $2 billion over the previous year. It also put in a provision that the state budget director would have 3 opportunities during the year to adjust the state budget. The first opportunity was at the end of April, the second is at the end of June, and the third is at the end of December. Well, we've passed the first benchmark there of April 30th, and the state budget director announced that he will have to, based on revenue shortfalls, reduce the state budget by approximately $10 billion, round number 7%. They did not indicate how this would play out and impact the various state agencies. And the university was informed, along with everybody else, that by May 15th, there would be some clarification as to what the potential reduction in the state budget would be for the university. So we're kind of in a holding pattern in terms of what our state funding will look like. And that is countered on the other side by something that was a little bit of a surprise in terms of the fact that the stimulus initiative that came from the feds, and we had announced this, and I think everyone's aware, City Tech was awarded $16.2 million. Again, I'm rounding this off a little bit, half of which is directly assigned to support the students and must go directly to the students. The other half was awarded to the college, but there are guidelines from the feds that we have not gotten yet that can tell us just how we can use that money. we could help them write those guidelines if they asked, for sure. The money for the students, however, became a little bit of a problem because there was some confusion in that the university applied for the funding on behalf of all the colleges, but two of the colleges, which I won't name, went off on their own to apply for the funding. And so this created a little problem and delayed, unfortunately, the allocation of $8.1 million for the students. And they're just getting it straightened out now. And it's hoped that by certainly the end of this week, there would be some clarity on that. With regard to that $8.1 million, a lot of numbers here, a lot of math. 97% of the money is going to be allocated to the students by an algorithm which is based upon their the size of their Pell Award. So students that received a higher Pell Award, showing the greatest need, would get a proportionally higher amount of money than students who had a lower Pell Award, if you will. So 97% of that money is being given out by formula. That formula is proposed by the university to the state, and the state education department is actually reviewing it. Heard that they've passed it. I haven't seen anything in writing yet, which just means that they will then be able to start distributing those funds to the students. And I know the students could really use the money given what's going on here. The other 3% of that money earmarked for the student is actually going to be given to the college. That amounts to $243,000 that we will have control over in terms of allocating that to students with high need. And the intention there was to give us a little bit of flexibility in helping to address the needs of students that might have been bypassed or not adequately treated by the original distribution. We also, through the actions of our college foundations, have collected to this point a little over $90,000 that we could add to that pool. So we're going to find ourselves with a little bit of money to help those students that are having significant difficulties. And one of those difficulties is making tuition payments and accommodating other expenses that they have. So that sort of very briefly lays out where we are at the moment. Everyone is waiting for the guidelines on that second half of the allocation that came from the federal stimulus. My sense is that what is likely to happen here is that we are going to have a reduction in support from the state as a result of the state's fiscal condition. And hopefully we would be able to use the federal stimulus money to help fill that void and allow us to move forward. So this is kind of a little bit up in the air. I think in the next couple of weeks, there'll be some more clarity. In the meantime, the university, in recognition of the fact that this could be a difficult year ahead, has put in place a hiring freeze. And that kind of applies across the board to both full-time and part-time positions. There is, of course, an appeals process, and any position that we feel is important to or essential to the operation of the college or to us offering the classes we need to offer, we can petition to that committee. And I think there'll be a very busy committee because the ebb and flow is significant when you get to registration. And in order to respond to the daily changes, we have to be a bit nimble, and I hope the process provides us with that opportunity. So I could go on here a little bit, but perhaps there's a question or two that I can be helpful in answering. We've issued some guidance here as we go along. Basically, we have not seen a lot in writing regarding the things I've just discussed, and so it's hard for us to send out with certainty statements about the status of the budget, etc., until we get some direct information. So May 15th, we should have a sense of where we are with regard to state support. And I hope between now and then, we will have further information on how we can use federal stimulus money to support the areas where we anticipate having a shortfall. So, Randall, I don't know if somebody.
Well, I see there's a question from John McCullough about hiring freeze, but if he's on, he can ask.
Yeah, thank you. So I know we had discussed before a hiring freeze for full-time positions, but for like adjunct faculty for courses we're offering, I'm assuming we can still hire an adjunct faculty person if we're offering that course.
I don't think. I think we can request to hire any position we think is critical. There are a couple of full-time positions that I think are important to the university, to the college, and we will petition to get them. And certainly with regard to adjuncts, they have put the freeze across all part-time and full-time titles. However, it's kind of understood that if those part-time titles include adjuncts, well, that's a fluid group. We need new adjuncts to replace people who sometimes move on, and we need people who, especially in this environment where we're largely going to be looking for people that can assist us in terms of providing online, delivery, if you will, of course content. And I should mention that we have a couple of initiatives here this summer. You all probably saw some notices regarding training that's being provided by both the college and the university for people that are still a little shaky on their online skills, because it's important that we provide the students with people who feel more comfortable, and that's part of this. John, as long as I have you, did you see that email about the student?
I don't think I know what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, I will.
Okay.
I've been in meetings all morning, but I'll follow up on that when I get a chance. Thank you for mentioning that.
Good. Okay.
Okay, then there was Anne has a question. I'll let her take it away.
Hi, President Hawk. So I'm just trying to understand some of the numbers that I was hearing, and it sounded like the $8.1 million that will definitely go to the students is going to be supplemented by the 90K that the college has raised somehow. But there's also going to be a 3% left over of the 8.1 that was going to them. I'm just trying to get a sense of what this means for our student support and what it means for the operating our operating costs.
Okay. None of this. I'll go through the numbers again quickly. None of this impacts the operating side of the house.
Okay.
$8.1 million awarded to the college and has to go directly to students to support them. 97% of that is being given out by a formula that the university is coming to agreement to with the state. And it will be largely driven by the size of the student Pell Award and therefore their need. Mm-hmm. So that is off to the side. 3% of the 8.1 million, which is roughly $243,000, is an amount that the college will have the ability to distribute to the students based on exceptional needs that some of them may have. The other pocket of money I spoke about, the $90,000, is coming from our college foundation. And we have more flexibility with that because it's basically not dependent on the federal stimulus guidelines or the university's guidelines. It basically falls under the rules, if you will, that our foundation is set up in terms of determining a student need.
So that's actually 333,000 extra dollars for the students that the college will be distributing.
It sounds like a lot. It's a drop in the bucket.
No, it isn't a lot. I realize. And what is the? Can you say something about the Petrie Foundation role in supporting students at this moment? I realize it's not part of any of this funding.
I'm sorry, which foundation?
So the Petrie Foundation.
Petrie. The money from the Petrie Foundation that we received is part of the 90,000 I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Petrie gave that money to the college foundation, essentially. So that's in the foundation pot, and that's part of the $90,000 that we've accumulated so far.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
If you want another question, we have one more coming from Stephanie Boyle.
Hello, Mr. President. I have a question. So the DOE got a lot of heat about not letting everybody know the numbers of staff and faculty infected with COVID. Is CUNY at any point going to tell us or the world how many professors, students, or staff members have been infected? I'm just curious because I see on Twitter all the time people who've passed away within the CUNY community, but CUNY isn't releasing any information about that. And just to speak to your point earlier about efforts to make the school safer with protocols, I think that students will have concerns. They've actually raised concerns with me about knowing how many people have been infected in the community. Thank you.
Sure. Stephanie, two things here. We're required to report to the health department any information that comes to us, and we do that. These numbers are sometimes difficult for us because people are under no obligation to tell us what their health status happens to be. I can report to you, we have, fortunately, to this point that we know of, suffered one fatality within the college community in terms of full-time staffing. One of our custodial assistants who passed on about 2 weeks ago, a gentleman with a serious underlying condition. He's had several heart attacks and very unfortunate. And there was another person we learned of who tutored part-time for us. Those are the only direct cases that we're aware of. How many people have come down with the virus and so on? Again, we'd be guessing. At some point, we were taking the position that we would hold a memorial, ideally putting this off until we were back in person, or at least the next fall, in consideration of those people that have been impacted. But as you can imagine, this is a hard thing to track. We hear somebody got ill, and then fortunately, in most cases, we hear that they're doing better and they've improved. And again, we don't have accurate information on this. So we will release at some point the information that we know. But we've been very fortunate not to have a lot of tragedy here among our internal group, and I hope it stays that way.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. No more questions coming in. Good and welfare. I'm not quite sure how we'll do that.
Let me just say here. I'm sorry. Those committees we're putting together, we will be in touch here because we want to include some people who represent the college council. You have a buildings and grounds committee, and we'll invite some of those faculty members to participate in the group that's going to be looking at the procedures for reopening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seems to be a consensus that we should be thanking Karen Lundstrom for all her efforts on our behalf to keep it all going. Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody that's made the effort to bring this off. I did have a little presentation, but by the time I get it all set up, that would probably people would have vacated. But I thank the executive committee for all their hard work, both before and during all of this to make this possible. There was a group that got together to live stream this, and appreciate all their efforts for doing that. But thank you all. It's been wonderful. Glad to work with you. Also, keep in mind, if you're on College Council next year, there's an organizational meeting next Tuesday. So I encourage you to attend that. Also, we have the preference form for standing committees. If you haven't filled that out yet, I encourage you to take the time to do that. Otherwise, we just don't know what committee you want to be on, and it might not turn out the way you want. So,
where's that form, Randy?
It's been emailed out. If anybody needs it, I can email it again to you. It's a Microsoft form.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you, Randall.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Bye, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, great job again.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Randy.
Oop, our numbers are going down.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you very much.
Thank you.
Peter, is that still you?
Congratulations. We made it.
We somehow made it through.
Yes. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. My goodness.
Oh my God, I'm so glad it's over.
Let's do this again in the fall.
Well, we get to do it next Tuesday, I think. But, well, we haven't quite figured out how the next Tuesday is going to work, because that one's going to be a bit of a challenge, getting people divided up into groups and not lose them.
Yeah.